So one chapter in the textbook that stuck out to me and just stuck with me throughout the whole semester was chapter 4 called Fresh Perspectives. And we did have a class discussion about this chapter that I just thought was super relevant and super important. And that was just that in journalism and in today's news reporting climate, it is so important to bring a fresh perspective to stories. Often in journalism, stories are reoccurring and you are hearing a lot of the same stories, year after year. So it is important that you don't tell these stories the exact same year after year. One example we talked about that's relevant to college age students was student drinking. This is a topic that's covered a lot in the news, especially in student newspapers like the Kentucky Colonel and things of that nature. But students don't want to be reading the same exact story year after year. So to bring that fresh perspective, you have to just be constantly thinking of new angles to tell the story to keep your audience interested. And I think just overall, this is so important in today's news reporting climate because we are in the age of smartphones where you can get your news from a multitude of sources. So to get audiences to read your news, you need to keep them interested, and developing fresh perspectives is exactly how you do that. And then on to the second question about how social media impacts reporters and news organizations. I think that social media allows reporters to interact with their audience, which is awesome. It can impact their professional role in both positive and negative ways, and I think that simply comes down to how they choose to use it. If used appropriately, I think that social media can greatly enhance how the public views a journalist. For example, I think when journalists interact with their audience and they're commenting on their community's posts and things like that, I think that really speaks volumes about their character. And I think, to me, that looks like they care about their community. They care about what their community thinks and has to say as it relates to news issues. However, I also think that social media can be dangerous in that things like likes, retweets, comments, etc. on posts can be viewed as endorsements, which is not always the case. So I think this can be dangerous, but if used correctly, I think it can be a real positive to news organizations. So just overall, I think that social media definitely does have an effect on how news organizations are perceived, but I do think it is up to the news organization as to what this perception necessarily is. And then on to the third question, what would you tell a student who maybe signed up for my class next semester? I would say just definitely stay on top of your work and attend every class. Not only attend every class, attend every outside event you have to, all of that, because they are really interesting. You may not think they will be, but they always surprise me and it ended up being interesting and relevant to journalism. I think that Dr. Hartman sets up this class for you to be successful. So if you just go to class, you stay on top of your work, you use Dr. Hartman's feedback. He provides really awesome feedback on Canvas. Apply all of that and you will be successful. And then on to each of the reporting assignments. So I'll start with the obituary assignment, which was our first assignment of the year. One tip I would have for that, make sure the person you are writing about has enough information for you to meet the page requirement. I kind of struggle with this because I didn't do a whole lot of research about the faculty member I interviewed, and then I came to find that she didn't have any kids, she didn't have a ton of hobbies or anything like that. So I did end up getting to the length requirement and finding out some more information, but it did make it pretty difficult to write that obituary on her. Then for the interviewing assignment, I would say just use your resources. You would be really surprised as to, people on campus. They have interesting stories or interesting things that they do. So reach out to your friends. That's exactly how I found mine. And the person I ended up interviewing, it was awesome. It was such an interesting interview, and I feel like it was really great practice for me because I'm not super comfortable interviewing. So being able to sit down with someone I consider a friend and someone I was pretty comfortable with was nice to give me some more practice in that. And then writing the preview story, we wrote it about I think it's the College of Comm. They do the Lunch with Our Stars. Or no, it's the School of Journalism, Lunch with Our Stars. And that was not too hard. I would say just I think we had to interview one person for that, so just make sure you find someone who knows what they're talking about. Again, I interviewed someone who was like, well, I don't really attend the Lunch with Our Stars, but I think it's a great thing to go to. Which, great, awesome, but I would have liked to hear, what about past experiences with Lunch with Our Stars? Do you know any of the people attending this year? Things like that. So just use your resources. People in the School of Journalism will, professors and stuff will know about that event and can help you in that regard. And then the public meeting, that was when we had to attend the City Hall meeting. And I was kind of nervous about this one, but I would say just make sure you pay attention. It can get a little boring, but it's important to just pay attention during that whole meeting. Take really good notes because that will help you when you have to write about it later. And then the speech we did in class, the speech assignment, that wasn't too bad. It's nice because you're just speaking to your classmates. So I would say just make sure you do enough throughout the semester. You really try to write some articles for the Kernel and get involved enough that you can easily talk about something for a few minutes. I got up there and was, I could easily talk about an event that I had covered just a few weeks before. So it was really a no-brainer, but just make sure you kind of do the prep work so that giving a 5-minute speech on, something you covered is easy. And then last is that breaking news assignment we did. And for that assignment, I would say the challenge was the biggest challenge was just the time limit. We only had until the end of that class period to write it. But honestly, it wasn't too bad. If you just, again, take really good notes and listen to whoever is breaking the news, listen to what they have to say, you should be fine. I would really recommend for all of these assignments recording things. That helps me a lot. And then that way I could just write down really interesting things I heard and know, okay, I can always go back and get details about, statistics and facts and things like that later. But I really like to listen for quotes and then go back for the factual information later.